Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Wednesday, May 25th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. Theme of the day. A big move in some areas that have been really beaten up, particularly retail. A couple names really kind of drove, I don't know if you want to call it short covering in that group, but a pretty beaten down group, as well as the home builders. You had Toll Brothers come out. I don't think they said anything marvelous, but it's the fact that there's a lot of bad news, I think, that's priced into this market. Evidenced by, when somebody comes out and says things are not that bad, you could see a couple names moving in the after hours. Williams-Sonoma, for example, came out and said that, their numbers, their retail, their monthly, I think it's monthly sales, or their sales numbers were actually very good. So, look at where this company has gone down to. The trend, of course, is still down in this type of company, but has really gone down, decently. So we're seeing that, these earnings reports, especially in retail, I call it the retail enigma, because it really depends on the business. We've certainly seen, companies, I think lower margin companies. We've seen Walmart, Target get hit really hard, but we've seen a couple of companies come up to the upside too. Costco is going to be an interesting report for tomorrow, right? They've been a leader in that space. They're a better run company, I think, than a couple of the ones that I just mentioned, but they're not, if the macro environment is really bad, that might affect them quite a bit. They're also more of an expensive company too. So you have to realize that too. But, this kind of started the day with Dick's Sporting Goods, which, again, you look at this company and basically what happened to it, 146 down to 70, 75. And really a straight down move from $100, getting affected by some of the other names that have been reported. Now, again, they didn't mention anything wonderful either, but it's just the fact of some of these names are pretty washed out and they can bounce, right? So that was one particular area. I mentioned the home builders. We could look at the chart of the home builders. Again, a really tough looking chart. Bending but not breaking. The last couple of weeks kind of broke below this range, but having some fight back to it. Would I go long any of these names in here below the 200-day moving average, below all the short-term moving averages? No, I wouldn't, but I do find it interesting. And, basically how we've been handling, or, I've been handling some of these names that are in downtrends like this. If they take off like they did today, they're great day trades. Right. So I day trade any, it doesn't matter to me what type of trend names are in regards to if you're just setting up for a day trade. For a swing trade, of course, I'm going to stick to names that, on the long side, names that are in uptrends. So that's the other thing too, which I've got written down, which I basically have been saying every time that we rally, and also sometimes when we go down too, is that one day is not a trend, right? You have to remember that the indices are in downtrends, but there's some positive things, right? There's some developments, there's some things that are getting a little bit better. So for example, let's go through the price action and we'll talk about a couple levels to watch here in the indices. But SPY was up 90 basis points. Qs did better than that, up 1.4%. Really where there was some nice outperformance was the small caps. I'm going to talk about the small caps. I'm most intrigued right now in this market in terms of the small caps, a little bit in international names too. International has been doing something a bit different. The VIX fell after those Fed minutes. Those Fed minutes are from the meeting back on May 4th, right? We basically just didn't hear anything majorly new. This is always the case with the Fed minutes, but sometimes they reveal something that you didn't hear, right? And people get the market responds to that, but it is what it is. It's in the past, right? The Fed minutes, we've gotten a lot more information from that. So let's move on from there. The dollar was a little bit, I think, ended up being a little bit stronger today. So let's look at a couple of the, start with a couple of the macro things. So the dollar, UUP was actually up a little bit, 37 basis points after a decent decline over the last 2 weeks. Also, when we look at bonds, they were essentially flat for the day, right? They are kind of coming up to some resistance that we talk about in the pre-market session at Tribeca Trade Group. We've got the 50-day moving average. We've got 143.21. So this is also in a downtrend. I would get a bit more excited going forward where bonds are now, because they've already made a nice move from the lows. But at this point, they need to get above 143.21, right, and get out of the value area for the month. Keep in mind, we only have a couple more days of the month, and we're going to get a new set of value areas. Here's the developing value area, which is based on this month's price and volume. All right, so let's keep going here. S&P, right? So do we have a lot to really look at here in the S&P in terms of what it's been doing the last 2 weeks? No, and this is one of my comments that I made this morning to members, is that you could look at this glass half empty, half full, however you want to look at it, but the last 2 weeks we haven't gone anywhere in the S&P. So there's not like a huge reason to get excited on the bearish side or on the bullish side. I think you just have to trade the markets in front of you and just realize for the last couple of weeks we've been going sideways. Another thing that I've talked about a couple times is this 200 period moving average. One of the points really quick that I've made is it's like every other week, right? We've tried to kind of break above it here. So we're trying to break the streak because those weeks where we don't try to break it, we go down pretty hard. But so we're a little bit out of sync with the pattern here, and it would be interesting if we do get above this this 200 period moving average. You could see we've been struggling with it all week long, and we're up a little bit from where we started the week, but it is like pulling teeth, right? In terms of trying to get higher in the S&P. NASDAQ, I want to talk about this because NVIDIA reported after the close, but you could tell it's a bit weaker, right? And that's been the story all year long, right? NASDAQ tech has been weaker, and it's got a different picture here. It's just hanging on to the bottom of value, and it is below the 200 period moving average. Now, when you look at, why am I talking about this in detail? Because, I continue to see traders. So here's NVIDIA after hours, not that bad of a move, but you could see it was kind of a little bit of an ominous signal here that right before earnings, it kind of got itself into the bottom of value resistance. So it will be an interesting name to watch. I will be watching it. I have no position in it. And so I'll give you my take on NVIDIA. I like the company. Right? I like this. I think they have great management. CEO is phenomenal. I like what they're doing as a company, but it's just out of favor right now. So give it a chance. Be patient. Right? That's been that has been the word of this year. If you're a tech or growth investor, you have to be patient and let these things let these things kind of finish up in terms of sell off, and what I have in front of you is the weekly chart, right? So the 80% rule, we've talked about the 80% rule a lot this year, right? This is the 80% rule means once you start a period above or below, right? As this is the value area for the whole year, it doesn't change. Once we broke into it, right? We had a test here, we had a failure here. But the 80% rule is active, meaning there's an 80% chance that we could explore the price could go from one side of the value area to the other. And it doesn't mean that you definitely bounce there. It just means that that's a pretty good level of support, right? So that's 115.37. So again, we don't have to get there. It's not 100% rule, but it's a pretty good chance. And like, that's where I would be really, really interested in NVIDIA, right? And if we get down to there, I will be watching, but there's going to be some other support so again, it's one of those things that's going to be on my radar. For now, it's trending down. It is what it is. So, being patient with a lot of these names that are just not acting very well, right? Another chart that I just put out on Twitter a little while ago kind of puts things in perspective. This is a chart that you've seen me post several times on Twitter, or several times in the Tribeca Trade Group trading room. This is energy, right? This is a ratio chart with energy in the numerator and tech in the denominator, right? This has been in retracement mode this year, right? Here's this year, right? Could this retrace more? I think so, right? It's possible, right? Here's the max. So this is a 5-year chart. Here's the maximum. Look at how far technology has outperformed, right? Because we've got energy in the numerator. So when this line goes down, that means tech is outperforming. So you could see it's just kind of the beginning of this. So we don't know how much, you don't know how long this trend is going to last in energy. It could last, a lot longer considering this chart, right? And how out of whack this got, right? In terms of tech outperforming energy. So we go back to the 5-year, right? And, at least 2018, right? And how much there's still a good chunk left, if tech wants to continue to underperform and energy wants to outperform. Now, this is a little bit, the last couple of weeks have been basically straight up, where energy has been outperforming tech. So there might be a break at some point in the, in the trend. We've seen a touch back to the 50-day, to that purple line, the 50-day moving average. But it's important to kind of have this frame of reference, right, about what is going on in this market right now, right? And it gives you, the perspective that this is what's going on, right? And if you look, there's many different things going on here. But valuation is one of them, right? These companies in tech are still expensive, right? So when we hear about the Fed raising interest rates, right, they're kind of, and these are not my words, this is the Fed's words, that they're going to most likely raise interest rates another 50 basis points 2 more times, and then they're going to kind of look and see what inflation is doing, right, to see if they've had an effect on that, right? But that is a headwind for more expensive companies. All right, so that's the picture. And if you look at some of the names that also reported after hours, Snowflake, right, is now down to basically the IPO price. I think the IPO price was 120. It's still an expensive company, right? So even after this move, all the way from the highs, right, it's still a very expensive company. Right. So, I know it's, this has been kind of beating a dead horse, because I talk about this in my end of day videos a lot, but it's just the story right now. You don't have to be super negative about it. You don't have to be, the other way too. It's just, it is what it is. These companies are very, they're not cheap, right? Some of these names are still expensive. Okay. So that's Snowflake. And, so let's switch gears here, right? And let's talk about some of the areas that actually did very well. And again, there was some really good performance. The software names were up 3% for the day, right? That's a very good day. Consumer discretionary was up, right? So the main thing that I'm coming back to for some of these groups and downtrends is that one day is not a trend. I know I've said that 5 times already. So let's look at a couple different. Let's look at what I did. Right? I thought that the so this is the last thing. I didn't get to the small caps yet. So here's what intrigues me about the small caps, right? They're trying to kind of, so first of all, they weren't as weak as the S&P or NASDAQ was last week, right? They didn't get as close to taking out those lows as the S&P did. And still below the 20-day moving average. And what I'm watching in the small caps, which did outperform today, right, is this level here on the 1-hour chart. That's 179.22, right? And you could see, referencing what I just mentioned at the beginning of this video about the 200 period moving average, you could see it's above here, But the next thing is that it's got to get above that 179.22 for the week. All right, here again is what the weekly chart looks like. You could also see that this 200 paired moving average is into the picture, and for now providing some support. All right, so that could change, right? But for now, the IWM is showing a little bit more relative strength right now. All right, so the refiners, how strong has this group been, right? So I mentioned the other day that I got long this group. I did take a number of targets because, again, just have to realize where there's some resistance, which is 128.89, right? My other favorite name in this group is Phillips 56, another refiner. This made it out to new highs, right? So again, look at the difference between these names and some of the ones that we've already gone through. SLB, this is a name I added yesterday. Nice follow through with this, up 2.6% today. Right. So when we look at my trades, here's me taking profits in Valero. I'm trying to trade some of these things for a day trade. Apple, I traded a little bit of Microsoft at the end of the day. I was looking at ServiceNow because I've got alerts all over the place. I got a target on SRE, which was a utility. I don't think it ended exactly where I wanted it to, but you could see, these utilities right now, even though they're at high levels, by the way, they're not cheap companies. So when I'm in something that's not a cheap company, I tend to take profits quicker. Here's Con Ed, which has kind of been the leader of the group. Another name that we went over yesterday, which I think is Exelon, underperformed for the day, but still moved up quite nicely. All right. LNTH, this is a name, medical device company that I keep adding on dips because it is in an uptrend, right? No problem adding on dips and names that are in uptrends. So I took another target in this. Wow, it closed a bit away from the highs of the day. I was hoping for a nice bullish engulfing. Didn't get it. That's okay, right? Took a target in this thing at, I think I took another one here, 66.50 I got, all right, for this thing. New trade for the day. Right, CCJ, right? We've seen option activity in this thing. It's kind of been pausing because it had to get through some resistance, right? It did close back above the 200-day moving average. I gave this a shot. I didn't see any option activity or anything like that, just something that I've been watching. It also is above the value area for the week. So as long as it stays above, 23, 2360 is the top of value that I'm giving this one a try. Another one too, the lithium group. I was looking for a little bit more of a pause in this one, but it's strong, right? This is the Chile lithium name, very, very strong, right? Strongest of the bunch out of this group, and the whole group is strong, right? Another, going back to energy, another name too, VET. I was at a conference. I was at the FinTwit conference a couple of weeks ago. One of the names that I was talking to, a person who specializes energy, says that he likes this name, VET. This is I believe it's a Canadian name, right? So they're back above the 50-day moving average today, right? This is another, just one on my radar. I don't have any position in it. Moving back to a couple tech names, EA continues to act really well. Another name, I showed this chart a couple times today, came into the, had a little bit of a dip in this thing, found that bottom of value and basically trended for the rest of the day. All right, Nucor, I took this trade off, right? Another cheapy play. Wow, looks like it's up after hours. Whoops, because I'm out of it here. I just wanted to play this thing for a quick trade, basically to this virgin point of control. I got it, and now I'll see if it can maintain above that. No problem putting this trade back on, right? Remember, all the way back in April, it had good numbers, just a really bad reaction, but it did find support. So again, you had to be patient with this thing. Went down from 170 down to 120, and that's where I've been kind of trying to trade this name. One last name, we could go through another 20 names here, but I think the video is long enough. Take a look at this name, right? I'm starting to warm up to some things that are financial type movers, LPLA, right? So this is more of a broker, right? But this is got back above the 50-day moving average, right? Really nice move there. Funny because you look at some of these European financials, like UBS. Again, I'm not sure that I want to go long this name, but just shows you that there's some strength in this market, right? And if you look at a couple other things like Mexico, right? Mexico is it's in an uptrend. This is EWW, right? Which has been acting very well. And some of the European areas too, right? The currency effect has helped over the last week because remember, when you have a currency, right, you are essentially short the US dollar, right? So the dollar goes down, international ETFs in general do better. As long as it mentions there are some international ETFs that hedge the currency exposure, but the majority of them don't, right? So that's also why the international names have been perking up a little bit. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Don't forget, if you are not a member, right, go to tribecatradegroup.com, and we're putting out a little bit more commentary in the morning, right? I put out my observations. One of the things too, which I'll leave you with, right, which I did put out on Twitter this morning too, is that it talked a lot of it. Sometimes I talk too many negatives, right? This is a positive, right? So this is the McClellan Summation Index. Kind of looks at those advancing versus declining names, right? Something has changed here a little bit, right? There's more advancing names versus declining names, right? Again, that's being helped a little bit by the small caps outperforming. But keep in mind, right? We were in a bear crossover since the beginning of April using a 10-day moving average, right? Well, now you got something different going on, right? You also have an MACD crossover as well. Now this could be negated, but for now it's a bullish crossover. I'll leave you with that, guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.